My name is Annalina Buckmann, and I'm happy to present our paper, More Than Usability, Differential Access to Digital Security and Privacy. And so it is widely agreed that if enough people employed basic expert security and privacy advice, the cybercrime industry would be hamstrung. But as we have just seen, there remains a yawning gap between expert advice on the one hand and user behavior on the other. So in 2022, Das et al. Published the Security and Privacy Acceptance Framework, which is a synthesis of scientific models of human behavior and 20 years of usable security and privacy research. And they found there's three main factors that affect the uptake of security and privacy measures, which is awareness, motivation, and ability. So awareness, the knowledge and understanding of threats and countermeasures, which is shaped by four underlying factors. And second, motivation, which is the willingness to engage in the behavior, also shaped by four factors. And we have ability, so the ability to convert intention into action. And at that time, they also found that the main focus of research has been on usability. On the other hand, we see a rise of inclusive and accessible security and privacy research that goes away from the idea of an average general user to diverse user groups and their needs when it comes to security and privacy. And usually, this research targets one specific group or factor. So we have also seen that there are still contradictory results and vast unknowns when it comes to how sociodemographic factors shape security and privacy behaviors. And therefore, recent work suggests to investigate intersectionality, so the intersections of sociodemographic factors and universal barriers in design. So, to address this gap, we conducted in-depth interviews to see how the SPAF can explain the security and privacy behaviors of a diverse sample with intersecting demographics, and also what barriers occur when engaging security and privacy advice. And in this talk, I focus on our main contributions, which is firstly, we identified new underlying factors for awareness, motivation, and ability. Secondly, we contribute insights into barriers to security and privacy. And lastly, we contribute the concept of differential access to security and privacy. So here you can see our research methods. So we recruited a diverse sample consisting of 47 participants that are diverse in gender, age, income, education, health and ability, and expertise, which all has been shown to have influence on security and privacy behaviors. And we talked in depth to them about their security and privacy in their everyday lives, their understandings and practices, and then conducted a bottom-up analysis where we centered their perceptions and experiences and barriers and challenges that they faced, and also looked at the intersecting factors of sociodemographics, and then mapped our findings to the SPAF to see if we could identify something new. And this we did. So we identified several new underlying factors for the SPAF factors. So for awareness, we found threat experiences and incidents to shape awareness. And here it was noticeable that participants would struggle to express the experiences that they had. So, for example, they would broadly talk about having been hacked when describing a wide variety of experiences. And thus, they would also struggle to find proper support and identify proper countermeasures. Secondly, we found organizations and institutions to shape awareness. So, for example, banks, we just heard about two-factor authentication, but also the police, schools, the workplace, or group-specific organizations, for example, for older adults. And here, participants said the support they got in shaping awareness was rudimentary, or they explained everything to me, or they gave me no support at all. Thirdly, we identified participants doing their own research to shape their awareness. And here it was very noticeable that especially everyday users would struggle a lot to find proper sources because they did not know where to look for it and were just randomly piecing together information. And yeah, you further need to trust the source, and participants struggled with that. And the fourth factor we identified were concerns. We also heard about that today in the first session. So what users fear might happen or what they care about as a source for awareness. And here it was very noticeable that participants found it a lot easier to talk about their concerns and could express them way better than the actual threat experiences they had. And we also saw lots of overlaps between the concerns. For motivation, we found enthusiasm. So the enthusiasm to tinker with technology or for problem solving, or some participants would set challenges for themselves like, oh, I will just use Linux products for half a year and see what happens. But we also had participants that said, I just want to use this thing and I don't want to know much else. So they didn't have a lot of enthusiasm to just deal with technology in general. Then we found the notion of shared responsibility. So participants found themselves to be responsible for security and privacy, but they also found that organizations, companies, or regulators should take more responsibility in creating the conditions so that security and privacy can be implemented. And they found that responsibilizing everyday users was a perpetrator-victim reversal. For ability, we identified resources and access to resources in the sense of material, mental, social, and time to shape the ability to engage in practices. So there were participants who lacked finances with low income to, for example, purchase new devices, to continue to keep updates, or to purchase storage for doing backups. So even though they knew about it and were motivated to do it, they could not do it because they lacked finances. Other participants said they simply lacked the time or social support to engage in the practices, or especially participants that were chronically ill or of older age, they said I don't have the mental capacities to do so. Secondly, we found that these factors are not separate, but that awareness and motivation and ability shape each other and affect each other. For example, concerns can increase or inhibit motivation, enthusiasm can increase awareness and ability, or usability can increase or inhibit awareness. We also identified 4 barriers. One barrier was that ran across those factors, and one barrier was security and privacy communication. So lots of technical terms in our sample, specifically prevalency of English terminology, presented obstacles and barriers to engage security and privacy. So people said, those nerds are just writing for nerds, and we feel left out. Secondly, fear and limited trust was a barrier. So participants did not trust security measures, for example, password managers, or they were just scared about the topic and did not want to engage at all. So they said, I don't want to go online with shaky fingers, so I just don't want to engage at all. Then the role of digital skills played a role. So participants lacked skills, for example, in basic dealing with technology or in doing proper online research. And so if you don't know what you're doing, you're very lost on the internet. Lastly, we identified the role of limited social support. So people, especially when they were living alone or in rural areas, they did not have anyone to talk to about the topic, and thus felt, okay, there is just a tremendous need and perhaps we should address it. Our last contribution is the concept of differential access to security and privacy. So we found that intersecting sociodemographic factors and identities amplify or alleviate the burden of security and privacy, and these factors can change over the course of life. And on the other hand, barriers in design and social environment that run across the SPAF factors, but also the sociodemographics, and together this results in differential access. So the access to security and privacy fundamentally hinges on the social and relational positions that users have within societies. And we hope that this concept will help to support the uncovering and explaining of underlying whys of user behavior and also the contradictory results that we are finding. So, to bridge the gap between expert advice and user behavior, we recommend to firstly employ integrative approaches that address awareness, motivation, and ability concurrently. Secondly, recognize differential access and develop measures that are adaptable to different contexts. Thirdly, improve security and privacy communication by using creative methods. Fourthly, support security and privacy supporters that are already there, disseminating knowledge and skills into societies. And lastly, to acknowledge shared responsibility by engaging the broader ecosystem of experts, organizations, regulations, and social networks. And with that, I'm ending. Thank you for your attention. You can see our main takeaways here. Find a QR code to our paper, and yeah, thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take questions.